Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, my friends. Good morning, or should I say good afternoon? Hey. Let's get going. Okay, we're gonna take a right today, and then we'll begin. And we're gonna mind the left shoulder, situated mildly above left wing cam, which is the wing of the day. And we're also going to mind the right tibialis, because those last tib raises I did left me with a slumping right pad of my foot. Very difficult to lift my toes and my pad on my right foot right now without significant discomfort. I went a little over. It felt like I was backing up and being cool about it, but I gotta back up even more next time and be very gentle. Come at it slow, come at it real, come at it firm. But before we talk about anything else, I want to do one thing, and that is begin what we do on this here podcast, and that is run. So we begin running. There it is. So, y'all good fine people. Y'all good fine people out there in internet podcastville, coming in to hang out with your guy, your fella, your person, your running shoe wing type person. Run Man, that's me. This podcast is called Ride Along with Run Man. I'm your host, Run Man. It is good to see you. It is good to hear from you. Good to shake the hands and give the hugs. Good to smell the flowers with you. It's good to be around on a day like today. It's good to be a human on a day like today. It's good to be pumping iron on a day like today, which we're not. But my legs kind of feel like lead right now, so we're pumping lead. How about that? I haven't even been that engaged with the running this week. I've been prioritizing monetary influx, and that is A-okay. We talked about that time before last, or recently. Hey, speaking of recently, we're really stacking these up, aren't we? This is episode 26. I plan on it being a long one. I don't know, though. We'll see. Could be a maybe run. Could be a possibility run. Could be a no run. I'm not sure. It's a little afternoon on a Saturday. People are going to be out and about, like me. As always, the viney cordage of my setup is tickling me a little bit. That's okay. Good to have a little humor in your day. A little tee-hee, a little ha-ha. I woke up this morning at dawn, like most days. And then like most days, I went back to sleep. Only this time, I slept another 4 hours. So I got up at a good time for me, which is 9. But it is not characteristic of my sleep cycles to get more than maybe 2 or 2.5 hours at a time of sleep. So I got 4 hours of sleep at once. And at dawn, I did what I do. I went up and I used the restroom and came back and turned away from the sun that was quietly broaching my relatively light deadening curtains. And I went back to sleep, but I was in a groggy condition. I just felt groggy. I felt like I had no pep. And then, which makes sense, middle of the night or middle of the early morning. But the second time, after that 4-hour chunk, I gotta say, I had an unusual rest. And I woke up floating off the bed. It was fantastic. I had a decent session with the Wim Hof stuff. I made 3:01 on the 4th cycle. There's been a trend these last few times where either I'm not coming to it quite as strong, or maybe I'm adjusting to things a little bit over time. But there was far less psychoactive light work happening. A lot less tumbling down the rabbit hole on this one than I've been used to. Typically, it's 4 for 4. 4 dives, actually, and then 4 recovery breaths. So typically around 8 times each morning. I'll spend 30 seconds in bright Circuitryville. Today, because it was a bit lighter on the diving, only 2 rounds that I really feel like, oh yeah, I got down there. Even during those 2, I really explored deliberately. There was less the sense that I had to surrender and give myself over to the moment and assign myself only the responsibility of not breathing back in. Harder than it might sound when you're in La La Land. But this time I did a really fine job of just keeping my cool and keeping my head really while in that condition. Becoming a real soft grade psychonaut over here. It's good. Well, so it was a good session today. Woke up and by 9:45 I'm out. Up and about. Bed made. Coffee boiling. Morning statements on the way. Really coming at you live. Coming to it live. And then I puttered around and had my coffee and relaxed and lounged about like Garfield and had like 2 bites of food around 11. And now here we are, around noon, little afternoon. Doing a reverse mid-circuit. That's kind of what I have in my brain anyway. You know, we'll see. Always liked this park. Look at this park. We usually put a Christmas tree right around there. In the dead of winter. Not that winter really dies around here. It's relatively pleasant, temperate. In this zone. Yeah. I mean, it bears time. Remember that episode a couple times back that I titled Special Moments? These times, if you experience them, if you experience unusual energy, if you experience an unusual ease with which your day gets going, or with which inspiration comes, or with which... If you find yourself with an unusual surplus of bandwidth right out the gate, you don't just shrug it off and say, oh, I guess I must have accidentally scooped an extra spoon of coffee in there this morning, and oh, I guess that means I'll crash later. No, you don't brush it off. You say, wow, okay. Right now, things are just a little brighter and a little cleaner and a little smoother. It's easier to stand up a little taller. It's easier to be a bit more myself. Easier to, what's the word in football? Juke. Easier to juke the gatekeepers today. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the gremlins and the ego. I'm talking about the can't voices. They're quite content today to sit back and watch me rock. Because we have a decent decor at this point in my life, compared to how things have been. I'll be singing a different tune the next time anything bad happens, I'm sure. No, I'm not sure. But we watch for patterns. I have my patterns. Whew. Yeah, man. I got up and I had this. Sometimes you start off the day with a spark. Today, things were already just one step further. I had my smoldering ember ready to catch. Things are easy to catalyze today. That's what it feels like. Except for that right tibialis. Ooh. But hey, even that's quieted down already, I notice. Yeah, that's good. That didn't take long at all. A few minutes. What are we at, 10 minutes? Maybe? Yeah, 10 minutes. 10:30. Doesn't take long, does it? Oh yeah, I guess before we leave the morning behind and come to current events and such, or whatever I've got on the docket, if anything, I want to leave the Wim Hof method technique behind with some love, and say to you, my audience, since we're in the workshop together, that these recent developments with Wim Hof technique, me trying to embody a bit more, me noticing my thought speech overrides of my body's signals more, just a little here and there, gently but firmly. Whew. Here's a question. How do we come through to this spot? Well, I don't see any traffic behind me. Whew. Hi. Thank you. Thank you. You always got to say thanks. So, if my progress with the Wim Hof method seems a little granular, and I'm catching you up and tuning you in to my milestones a bit, well, if you're keeping track of my progress, you might notice I didn't spend like 3 of my rounds at or above 3 minutes today. That's just the organic nature of this thing, man. Maybe I'm not bringing it as much, but I feel like I was experimenting a little bit with breathing paces and those dives. You know, yesterday I think I hit 331. That might have been my first time going that deep, or rather, what's the word for it? Not deep, but I mean, yeah, deep, but that long, you know. Yeah. So here and there we collect these little signposts of progress and we tuck them away in a little badge flare case to be worn on our sleeves on podcasts for each other. Get the plumage out. I can say I'm proud of myself for something today and yesterday, and just for being myself in general. You might say, hey, proud of yourself just for being you. What do you have to do to be you? I mean, it's kind of an accident of your birth that you're you, depending on what kind of philosophy or modalities you might be swayed by in the present moment. That is a baby squirrel. That is a baby little squirrel. Or not. You know, they get pretty big around here. Hell yeah, he's going. With a flick and a twist, he's gone. Oh, I lost track of him. There's a bird back there, but lost track of the squirrel. That's fine. I'm sure we'll meet again. In one form or another. Will we recognize each other? Who knows? I am proud of myself, though. I'm proud. It does take something to be me. On a day like today, it's very easy. That's an interesting quirk in being a human, isn't it? Days like today, when things come easy, it's easier for me to be proud of myself. When it might be really nice to feel very deeply this pride in myself for my coming to the being of me and showing up the way that I do, you'd think that it would be more viable if my infrastructure was set up in such a way that the pride and the self-love came more reflexively, more easily, and to a deeper part of me on bad days, or days of great challenge, let's say, when the verve is not coming, when I wake up and it's dead in the furnace, and the lead does not become molten, the legs do not become wings. I'll tell you. I guess we're still wrapping up the morning, aren't we? I mean, I did actually have one thing on the docket, and that was last night. I wanted to mention that I had a dream. The last dream that I had during that 4-hour craziness was pretty extensive, but it ended with me being what I thought was the second in a dueling trade-off. So if you're not familiar with certain modalities of dueling, what's the word? Manners, I guess? Etiquette. I've read about this, and I'm not sure how things really worked, of course, but back in the day when duels were more common, but typically, if you're going to duel somebody, historically, and they're going to duel you, you agree on it. You go time and place, jot it down, you get some witnesses, and both combatants, if possible, choose a person who will be their second. The second is a person who shows up and fights in the place of the sign-up combatant. If the sign-up combatant does not show, it's like collateral. It's like battle collateral. Kind of like the opposite of having a champion to fight for you. If you don't show up and you run away, that person's responsible for the blood. I guess the seconds can turn into champions because suppose both combatants don't show up and they run away. Do both seconds have to fight? There's probably some unspoken, oh God, oh, it hit me right in the nipple. Whew. Them carpenter bees just do not see. They do not see. He did come up to eye level and wink at me though, didn't he? Whew. Whew. My nip. Huh. A little scared now. Anyway, collisions with fauna aside, we were talking about seconds. And, well, I was in a situation where an old friend got into a conflict with these two surly fellas. And one of them was aggressive and he began fighting the old friend. The old friend defended himself decently for a time, but the second that he left himself open, the other guy, the other combatant, had a cohort, and that cohort came up and headbutted him. A very sharp blow that might have thrown the battle. And I was hanging there because I didn't feel particularly like battle was my business right then. But I know 2-1 odds are not fair. I didn't like that. So I acted on my impulse and jumped in and started tagging the cohort. And then the rest of the dream was me managing the weaving in and out of that battle. That second guy was really one for the headbutts, though. A large slate-like forehead and tiny round eyes. I remember that much. Very vulgar, tough, goon-like features. Can we just take a second to say the word goon is rad? Okay, we took the second. Speaking of rad, are you kidding me? This is real. Look at all this, man. Okay, we crested the hill. We come back down. So, no particular commentary when it came to that dream, but I thought I'd share. We share around here. We partake of the chalice of experience together. This is a communal experience. This is down here at the campfire with the roast turkey. I'll break you off a leg. If you'll break me one. Actually, you don't have to. This is a podcast, not a dialogue. You do not have to like, comment, and subscribe. Despite how often I jokingly say, please do, if X, Y, or Z. We're going to run through this construction rabble. Wait. Oh, left knee will not pop. Okay. I'll log that in for later. Look at them trees, too. That's nice. I tell you. So, God, I wonder if I can. Ooh, that feels dangerous. I tucked the cord further back toward my elbow. Oh, okay, easy. Actually, now I feel like some anime character with all this cordage weaving up the arm. I feel like a deckhand about to throw somebody back onto the deck with a mighty rope haul. Rope cam. Okay. Today, I want to go as I would have before I got more familiar with this highway. And learned that way is a little bit more amenable than you might think. A little bit more friendly. But yeah, so the docket is clear. Nice and early. You know, there's nothing really going on. It occurred to me some of my issues with doing deep split squats have been that I don't have sufficient length in both legs, at least one more than the other. My right side is stronger than my left side is looser than my right. So it sets up this dynamic, doesn't it? It sets up this thing. And I keep coming up against it. And I'm realizing rest days probably ought to begin incorporating and including stretching. Get some length. Got to load the Achilles tendons, load the back of the knees with some real good stretching pressure. That's neither here nor there, but well, the laundry list grows longer, doesn't it? If I want to run a zillion miles without pain, then I need to look after my joints. My joints require more love and more attention than the next guy, and less than the last guy. I have my injuries and my past and my inflammation and whatever else. I've got my version. Okay, we're all right. Elbow cam, get off of there. We're done with you. So yeah, that's the yeah, the laundry list, that's right. Want to run 1,000 zillion miles. And then to do that, I got to take care of my joints. To take care of my joints, I got to do the split squats and the raises and get blood flow as deep in there as possible. And do what people do to rehab their knees, hips, and ankles. And eventually bulletproof everything. Because at some point the upper body's going to creep in, but that's later down the line. More immediately, to rehab the knees properly. I'm going to wait for this guy. To rehab the knees properly, well, you got to do these exercises. But then, to be able to continue to upgrade your way through the various adaptations to these exercises, got to be willing to rest and also to supplement the strengthening of the muscles and the joints with the lengthening of the tendons to the appropriate length so that you can actually do the harder and then the harder and then the harder adaptations to these poses, which will eventually lead to the bulletproofing that I'm talking about. Whew. How much of that is unrealistic, I'm not sure. The zeitgeist is cartilage doesn't really come back, and that's okay. Maybe that's true. We can work with what we have, fortify it, and for its participation in the journey, everything else can take on the extra requirements to get me those zillion billion miles. That's not unrealistic, I don't think. Maybe 40 years from now it might be. Wait. There it is. Left knee pop engaged. Very nice. But, hey, you know, this is just my thought process. Oh yeah, but if it is possible to do a little bit of rehab of the cartilage, the way to do it is going to be to just try and push as much blood and as much juice and as much attention and as much whatever we can around that area so that anything that's on standby, ready to turn on and participate in any regrowth that is realistic, has what it needs to sort through the goddamn slog of paperwork that says I can't. Get on the streets, get some outreach programs going, and take care of business. I just made an analogy to an urban development. That's okay. I just made an analogy to a police department in an urban environment, that is. How often do you see police officers just shooting the shit with people on the street? Hanging out, having a good time. Outside of restaurants. Stopping people, or not stopping people, but just engaging with people. Well, my task is to do that. Within. Send some envoys. Get some feelers out, see what we can work with. See what's possible, what's realistic. Talk about what cells are hard and what cells are soft. Soft cells, the easy yeses are, oh my God, I just found out that everything's really easy to take care of and I don't have to compromise at all. And 24 hours in a day is totally enough to do all the things. Knees and shoulders and head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. The hard cells are, oh God, it's either a lot of this or we put a pin in this with a little bit of love, which frees us up to do 5 or 6 other little things that are complex and need management week by week. And then perhaps the map of these activities and things and such across time, this stretch and that weight and this adaptation and that goal and that victory will eventually equate to a body that does not have to shrapnel itself apart in order to do the simple task of foot in front of foot in a rapid succession across a vast distance while the lungs and brain speak through a throat tube connected to teeth and tongue, as it is right now. That's us. And by us, I mean me and you. How are you? You find yourself well today? Do you have the verve? Do you have the spark? Are you mired in a glaze of doldrums? Honey-like and comfortable and seductive as the squashiest armchair, beckoning for your time, beckoning for you to grow your inertia organs and infrastructure and preferences. I place what might be an unbalanced premium on free time. If you put too much of a premium on free time, then it's not really free, is it? It's business. Try to relax. Clench your relaxation muscles. A couple of days ago, I noticed. I guess we're still talking about Wim Hof technique. By the way, he's doing a podcast on Monday. So today's the 11th. So what is that? Sunday? So the 13th, I guess. I think it's the 11th. Shit. Could be the 12th. I really don't know. Upcoming Monday, 13th or 14th of June, 2021. Wim Hof has a podcast that is coming out with Russell Brand, the guy who interviewed him years ago, who got me into the Wim Hof technique when I found it. And then, did what I do and chased it down a rabbit hole through Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, and Wim has worked with a bunch of people. Aubrey Marcus and Lewis Howes. Couldn't get enough of this Wim Hof guy. Anyway, yeah, they're doing a podcast. That brought something to me, though. Do you have a minute? Would you like to hang out with me for a second and get real vulnerable for a second? Just take off the armor, put the sword down. I broke off the turkey leg for you. What are you doing standing there? Facing the night. Everything that... I was told this in childhood, but recently Survivor Man said the same thing. Everything that was there in the jungles during the day around the perimeter of your camp and this fine fireside that we've got ourselves sequestered by, that jungle